They get a slap on the wrist. Google fined $22.5 million for ignoring customers' privacy settings, the largest penalty ever imposed by U.S. Federal Trade Commission. Because, oh, you set your privacy settings where they can't do it? They don't care. They do whatever they want. You know, we're not talking about some cookies, folks, so, you know, Amazon knows what you ordered last time. We're talking about breaking into your computer, and they're not getting in trouble for it. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to look at weather modification. Is the weaponized weather system being used to destroy crops, not just here, but worldwide? You bet it is. In fact, guys, when you look up Pentagon weather weapons and other governments, just print me a few articles on that just so I can show it to folks. Coming up with our guest. Right now, let's go to some more phone calls. Paris in Ohio. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hey, how's it going, Alex?
Pretty good, brother. Thanks for putting up with me. What's on your mind today?
I got some drone news out of Dayton, Ohio. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a lot of local industry involved in this area with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base developing drone technology. And a friend of mine attends a local community college, Sinclair Community College, and a few weeks ago he had a gentleman from an organization called Information Control Corporation come in and was talking about their work with drones in our area. And he said that there's already drones in the sky over Dayton, Ohio, and they've already contributed to dozens of arrests. And they fly at high altitude and use high-resolution cameras to just zoom in on whatever they want to zoom in on. And,
yeah, with taxpayer money, it's unlimited. Just take another house, take another farm, buy a bunch of drones. It's actually in the news with the Pentagon in Ohio today. This is Pentagon test drones at civilian air park in Ohio, and they go on to say it's part of surveilling the public. Again, this is just totally training you that you're the enemy. It has nothing to do with stopping crime, all these cameras, the rest of it. It's all about surveilling you and making you feel powerless. That's what government wants you to feel like. And yes, this is the new economy, is, as I've said, surveillance, checkpoints, drones, armored vehicles, as one side of the society basically absorbs or resorbs the other side of society.
I agree, and that's why we just try to get out on the streets and participate in your contests and do our own kind of things to just continue to try and wake up our community. You know, we were out hanging posters the other day and for the latest contest, and it's amazing. I mean, everybody you talk to, I mean, they know that the government's crooks, and they know that our rights are being violated, and, you know, Obama's a scumbag and Romney's a scumbag. But I think a lot of people just don't realize to what extent, you know, the control grid's being set up. And, you know, we're just trying to spread the word and, you know, hopefully turn the tide against these people.
Well, I totally agree with you. Well said. That's why we're having the Stop Obama Dictator contest that's extended through this Friday. I've been so busy, I haven't gone out and hung them up yet. I am going today. I am going today to hang up posters and shoot video and talk about why I'm doing it. And then we'll air that tomorrow here on the show. But everybody, post your own posters. You know, there's poison in the water, fluoride. The vaccines are deadly. Big Pharma wants to kill you. Foreign banks took over America. That's why we had the V for Victory contest. We should just bring that back. Don't have to have a contest to do it. We've got to show people the power of the grassroots. That's why I cannot state enough. We've been delisted by Google on Google News. We get harassed. They try every form of censorship in corporate America. It doesn't matter. You, the people, spreading the word about Infowars.com, Prisonplanet.com. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. We're hiring new reporters. We're expanding in the face of tyranny. We're expending the capital that we've accrued in an all-in fight against the globalist. Because people now are beginning to realize this is really real. Again, as I've said 100 times, this is not a boss hog takeover. That would not be good. Because a boss hog takeover leads to a hot tyranny. We've had boss hog in charge for probably 80, 90 years. Now, boss hog died, folks. We got the devil. And the globalists want to kill the majority of the world population. Everything that you're seeing is only the buildup towards a global straitjacket to tie us down so the scientific technocracy can engage in an orderly extermination. Now, what are we going to do about it? Sick of the globalists, eugenicists, control freaks adding poison. Okay, we had Rosalind Peterson of Skywatch lined up. Her phone's busy. We'll see if that. She's been a frequent guest over the years. We'll see what happens with that. She's always interesting, but I'm not that worried about it because I kind of want to take your phone calls and cover news. But here is the report that this was going to be based on, and we'll go to your phone calls. Napolitano on the weird weather and climate change. There's a pattern here, she said. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano this week linked climate change with wildfires hitting Colorado. Well, there's always climate change. Napolitano said there's a pattern here, and she noted the summer wildfires as well as the East Coast heat wave and the high-velocity winds that whipped through the mid-Atlantic last week. Thousands of people remain without electricity because of the windstorm. People always had big fires and big windstorms and big prairie fires. Some summers are always hotter than others. But I've always pointed out that there is weather manipulation and modification going on. It's admitted that billions a year are spent by the Department of Energy alone and Department of Defense engaged in weather modification. I remember it was in the San Antonio Express News, got to be like 12 years ago, as a footnote blurb. They had flooding that killed over 30 people in one day in South Texas. And then they said, oh, and the Air Force says the weather modification the drills they were doing to cause rain had nothing to do with it. It's almost like that gun you saw me shoot your neighbor in the head with. It had nothing to do with his head getting blown off. The point is, this stuff's been going on forever. And they can easily and have admitted that they will use it as a weapon against countries that don't pay off their IMF World Bank loans. You name it. The globalists are all about playing God. That's what all the GMO is about, that in the major studies that are out there screws up the gut flora. The GMO corn, wheat, you name it. And then don't worry, Bill Gates is coming out with patents on new GMO milk that gives you new gut flora. He's spending billions on it. And he's involved in the weather modification as well, because this is where the whole future is going. They're engineering our future and not asking us questions about it. They're releasing the GMO mosquitoes and not asking us. I have a guest on the Nightly News tonight covering that. Salem News did a good job of this. Gates and Monsanto go after milk in the near future. By the way, guys, there was a New York Daily News article about the Hatari militia guy getting his guns back. I meant to cover Sunday. After I take calls, I want to cover that. Will you re-pull that article or print it for me? Just because it implied having guns was terrorist. And I just want to illustrate how disconnected the so-called corporate media is. Well, they're not disconnected. They're operatives of the globalist. So what's their answer to less and less of us believing their bull? Bringing internet censorship in to shut down their competition. That's their answer. But I digress. Gates and Monsanto go after milk. And the reason I want to cover this is we've been talking about this the last few years. Gates is putting billions into gut flora research. And take just the BT corn. If bugs eat it, they die. A few months ago, I made a big joke out of it, a sick joke, because there was a Washington Post headline. In fact, I can pretty much give you the exact headline. You can look it up yourself. Washington Post, Monsanto says farmers not planting. Monsanto says farmers not following planting rules for insects. Monsanto says farmers not following rules. And then hidden in the article, it said, yeah, you're supposed to plant refuge crops that are 1/3 of your regular crop so bugs have something to eat, because it's not good to have all the bugs die in the area. And so under environmental agreements, bugs dying is bad. You dying is good, basically. And in fact, they found the article. There it is. Makers of genetically modified seeds say more farmers evading EPA rules. I think that's it. Yeah. Print it. Monsanto Co. and other seed makers reported a 3-fold increase last year in U.S. farmers caught violating rules intended to stop insects from developing resistance to genetically modified corn. The rules affect farmers planting seeds modified to produce the toxin delivered from Bacillus Thrungenesis, or BT, a natural insecticide. Yeah, there's, poison in plants. They can call it natural, but it grows about 1,000 times stronger than it normally does, is the point. And then you eat it. The Environmental Protection Agency requires those growers to also plant an adjacent area, a so-called refuge, of BT corn, so that bugs feed on both types of corn and don't become immune to the toxin. About 41% of the 3,053 farmers inspected, you got to get inspected when you buy seeds from these guys, in 2011, they're really just GMO organisms, failed to comply with the refuge requirement according to data that Monsanto provided last week. Seed companies are concerned that bugs' resistance to modified crops may be increasing. All right, let's stop right there. Gets into the BT gene engineered. They've got it where it creates a poisonous fungus. Another one creates a poisonous bacteria. Conservatively, 1,000 times. I think the number was 1,200 and something times on average stronger. But plants can also mutate and have it a lot stronger. And so their argument is, well, it's natural. Well, I can pick up a natural 20-pound rock and bash your brains out with it, too. A lot of plants grow cyanide, strychnine. A lot of plants grow high levels of arsenic in them. There are silver nightshade grows all over Texas out in fields. Witches would take it to hallucinate in Old England. I don't want to get folks united to take it. It's very dangerous. The point is, you eat about a leaf of that, you're going to have a violent hallucination before your heart explodes. Does that make it okay because it's natural? I always love folks that say, but it's natural. It's natural. But they unnaturally engineer the plant to not have it growing on the outside of the corn, but the corn grows it inside, and then bugs eat it, and what do bugs do? Bugs fall over and die, but they say it's safe for you to then eat it. And then suddenly you see off the charts incredible different intestinal and stomach disorders, irritable bowel, Crohn's. I mean, it is, guys, type in massive increase in Crohn's, massive increase in intestinal disorders. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate here because I have to do the math. Like, I don't know the math of 1 in 25,300 having autism 29 years ago, and now it's 1 in 58. What 1,000% increase is that? I don't know. I've done the math on the cancer. Pediatric cancers, depending on the type, would be 1 out of 2 million in the 30s, and then now that same pediatric cancer is 1 out of 20-something thousand. I mean, you've got to look up the numbers yourself and do the metric increase. But the point is, it's straight up, out of sight, insane, in your face. But my point is that gut disorders are just everywhere. And there's toxicity in the gut that then causes chronic toxicity in the brain. Those two are connected. Just devastating effect on our society. And Bill and Melinda Gates, who own part of Monsanto and who are also part of eugenics operations worldwide and caught doing all form of, sterilization, you name it, funding UN programs, and more of this is coming out. We've been talking about it for 10 years. Finally, they're going, wait a minute, they're funding forced abortion. Wait a minute, they're going to forced abortion conferences. Wait a minute. They do say get rid of the population. They do want death panels. Yeah, I know he dresses like a non-threatening nerd. Now, there's a pubmed.gov, the increasing prevalence of Crohn's disease in industrialized societies, the price of progress. In fact, we've got a New Yorker magazine article talking about sterility in the West and just says, well, it's part of the way it is. Anyways, this is being done by design. It's not the average toxins that are the main contributor. It's the GMO crops. Over 80% of the filler foods, the corn, the soybeans, the wheat, the sugar beets. Do I need to go on? All the major food crops now are over 80%. When I say 80, I'm guessing down. On average, there's metrics of this. 89% of U.S. corn, GMO. And then it just goes down the list. I'm just saying 80%. It's actually over that. But the averages vary. You are being bombarded